Welcome everyone. Hope you're all doing great today. Today the Unity intro workshop. Me and Ray are going to kind of guide you, kind of show you some of the basics, just to kind of get you started if you were ever wondering on how to get started with Unity for like 2D games and 3D games. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Alvaro Alvarez. I'm the Innovative Media Librarian at the Orbach Library, and I work very closely with Ray in the Creat'R Lab, just working around like different programs and workshops and helping out with the makerspace. And I'll hand it over to Ray to introduce himself.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Ray Gonzalez, and I am the Maker Services Coordinator. I manage the Creat'R Lab, which is the makerspace at UCR. And thanks everyone for joining us today.
All right. First of all, I'm gonna start off showing you a sprite that I created of the mascot from UCR, and I kind of built like a small little like scene, not a full like game or level. That's a little too more advanced, but I'm gonna kind of just show you around the Unity software, like the interface and how I created the animations and that, and then from there we'll transition over to Ray, and he'll show you some of the 3D stuff. And also if you have any questions, feel free to type it in the chat, and then Ray or myself will get to it as soon as we can. And also at the end, we'll allow some time to Q&A if you guys have any questions towards the end of the workshop. So let's see. Let me make sure I have the right screen. Okay. All right, so does everyone hopefully sees the Unity screen? I have the software up, and you see a bear with he's like kind of sleeping with the UCR logo. So I did my best attempt to draw the Scotty Bear, the mascot, to create the sprite for this. So let me kind of show you what it does from what I did. So I used Procreate on my iPad to draw the each individual PNG image for the character. So if you can see when he's idle, he's just sleeping. So you can see like the little Z's coming out of his mouth. And that was my best attempt to make it look like he's asleep. When you click on the keyboards like left and right, you can kind of see he opens his eyes, he starts walking. So you could go left and right, and you can kind of see here's the scene and like the background image and the tiles for the ground. So let me stop that really quick. So I just wanted to show you that, and now let me see. First off, I'll start with some of the stuff on the menu on the top. So like any other software, you have like your file where you can create like a new scene, open a scene, where you can save your project, open up a new one, create a new project. Also in the edit, it's like kind of the basic stuff too, like if you want to cut, copy, paste, deselect, select. If you want to play, all these selections are also available over here, as you can kind of see. Like if I go over here, you can right click on most of the stuff, and let me see, I have to go to level map. So yeah, you can kind of see I can right click and create things from the left. You can hit play, pause, all that on the top. Over here on the assets section, you can use this to create like folders, scripts, anything that you will be using in the game. So there's a lot of options here. So it's like it depends on the type of game that you're using. You're not going to use everything. Like a lot of the lighting and all that refers more to like the stuff that Ray's going to go over with the 3D games. The 2D games are more simple. It's just more sprite based and like just the character drawings in general. Over here for game objects too, in this section, it allows you to create like the 2D objects, 3D objects. You can also do like the audio, video, user interface stuff here when you're working on your game. Your components over here too, you have your physics, 2D, like all the box colliders, the rigid body. Those are some of the ones that I'm going to go over today. There are other ones. The rigid body, 2D is mainly for like the physics, like when you create your character, and I'll show you a little later what I mean by that. And then the box collider is also the way you create a box around your character, your sprite, so that when it interacts with things in the environment, it collides with other boxes, and then based on your code, then that's when it'll trigger events, or if you're fighting a boss, like you'll get hurt and stuff like that. Level Designer is actually it's a package that I found online that helps me create the levels. It helps me just create the levels a little easier. So I installed that by going over here to it was under assets. Once I downloaded the package from online, I go in here, go to import package, and then you do custom package. And when you click on that, you just have to look to where you downloaded your package and install it. There are a lot of packages out there that people share online. Some are just like the game itself. I can pretty much export this as a package and share it out with people, and then you would just go into assets and then import the package, and then you would have access to all the files in this project or the files that I select for the package. So for this one, the person like made this, they coded this so that like it's easy to draw the stuff in the game. And like I'll show you that in a little bit too, how to use that. So let me get into this now. So over here, you notice that I have these tabs. So I have like the console, the game, the project. So the ones that I mainly use is the game, just to see like what's going on when I hit play. Project, here's where you have pretty much all your folders and your files. You can organize this as however you want, whatever way it makes it easy for you to find your like your assets, your drawings, your anything that you're going to use for your game. So you can see I can have some folders like the animation folder. I have my prefab folder. Prefabs are basically just like the character. The prefab for this would be all the settings already customized to the way I want it, so that if I create like another scene, I could just come here to this prefab and drag it to the new scene, and I don't have to play around with any of this from scratch. And I'll show you, I'll go over this in a little bit too. So also with that level designer that I was mentioning, it also creates a folder over here, and it's called LB Tiles. So here's where like I'll show you how I create a prefab using that in a bit, where it'll store those files, and then when I go to the level map over here, it'll give me these paint mode, collider mode, selection mode, and that's where I can click on the tiles and then draw them within my like scene. So let's see. Yeah, sorry, there's a lot of info, but yeah, if you have any questions, yeah, feel free to like save them for later, or if you want to type them, and then Ray and I can answer them for you. So yeah, let me show you, I guess, how you can create the level with the level map, and I can show you how I created the bottom part too. So as you can see, I have my folders over here. So let me see. I could go to sprites. I have objects. So you can see I have a lot of different things over here. So I guess I can do a tree just to show you. Yeah, I'll just do this one. So if I do create prefabs over here, this button, it will create that tree. You see, so it says when prefab was created. If I hit OK, then if I go to level map on the top, you can see this tree is now here. It wasn't there before. So now I can actually click on this tree and then go over here into my level. And if I click somewhere, it'll pop up. The only thing is with this one is that if I go to, one thing you have to make sure is that when you do create a prefab, you make sure the layer, let me see, if it's behind the, because the way it works, it's like in layers, kind of like with Photoshop. So like as you put things in, if the object is behind another layer, you won't see it obviously. So let me see. So this one, I just do foreground. So I went to sorting layer over here on the options for it, and then if you go to foreground, you see now it pops up. It pushes it forward to the first layer. So yeah, so you kind of see it's like a little tree. So for this prefab again, like I mentioned, I can do all the customization over here on the right. So that way, whenever I want to do multiple trees, I don't have to do this like from scratch. I just pretty much draw them, and they'll be at that scale or whatever it is that you do. So I could do like the scale of 5. Let's see. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, you could kind of see the tree. It's a good size, I guess. And then you can also move it around. Over here on the top, you have your selections tools like your hand tool, your move tool, rotation, the scale tool. Uh, so what I did is I scaled it over here manually, but I could have just gone over here and scaled it by clicking on this and then clicking on the object. So let me see. So I'm going to move this. And then if I want to move this, I have to turn off the level designer. So you could just turn it off. Oh, sorry if my audio went out. Am I okay, Ray? I think it turned off.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Okay. So yeah. So if I want to move this around or do anything on the scene, I have to turn off the level designer. So you just click on off here, and you can see it goes away. So now I can go over here and select the tree, and I can move it. Oops, clicked on the wrong thing. But yeah, you can see I can move the tree and set it wherever I want it. And then I did mention doing the colliders too. So let me go show you. So if I go back to level map, I'll turn it back on. If you go to collider mode, that's where you can add the colliders to objects. So let me see. I'll show you with these crates. It's probably going to be a little easier. So I'll go to paint mode again. So I'm going to select the crate. Then, oops, sorry, I didn't select it in the right. So you can do just edit. You could do controls. It's not ready to delete. So you could just find it. Let me see if I can find the tree. So I'll turn this off. And I can just click and delete. All right, so I did that by mistake. So I'll go back to level map, turn it on. So I had the tree selected. So now I have the crate. So I'll draw a few crates. As you can see, I'm just left clicking and I'm drawing the crates. So once you're happy with the way you want the crates in the level, you could go to collider mode. And what this does, it adds the collider, the 2D collider to the object. So that'll just enable like the physics so that when your character runs into it, he'll actually stop at the crate. If you don't have a collider on your object like this or the tree, then the character would pretty much just keep moving through it like as if it was invisible. But yeah, of course you don't want that. So yeah, once I do this, all I have to do is left click to right. I click from the left to right. Once it's highlighted, you just do add a 2D box collider. So yeah, that would add the box collider to that. Then if I want to do it to these, do the same, and then add a box collider. So let me see, I could draw a few over here just to show you. So I'll add the collider, and then he should stop at these. Yeah, you see, so now like he's walking, but he can't go through them. But as opposed to that, if I do, I'll draw a couple without. Oh, actually, these would have the collider. But let me see. Let me delete these. I know the tree doesn't have anything yet, so I'll show you what happens. He'll just walk right past it. So you see, with the tree, since it doesn't have a collider on it, he's just walking right past it. So I guess that's fine if the tree is supposed to be like in the background, but if it's something that you want the character to have to jump over or interact with, then you would have to do a box collider so that it stops. So that's why I like this package, because it allows you to create the prefabs really quickly. Then you could come over here and click on the items and then scale them, rotate them, add the components. I did add the collider using that level designer up here, but you can also do this, add component, and then you could just type in box collider 2D, and when you find it, it adds the box collider 2D to the object that you clicked on. And here, let me show you, I'll click on my bear just to show you some of the settings that I have for him. So I clicked on the Scotty bear, and you could kind of see I already added the box collider 2D. Once you add those, you don't really have to do a lot of things to it unless you're getting into a more complicated game where you're adding triggers and you're going into the code and you're actually going to some of these to do more interactions with it. But let's see. Oh, sorry, my headset. Oh, yeah, sorry about that. My headset turns off if it doesn't hear anything, any sound. But yeah, so the box collider 2D, I added that manually. Then the rigid body 2D, like I mentioned, is for the physics. The only thing I really did was checked off this freeze rotation on the Z axis, because if you don't, oh, excuse me, if you don't, the character will tip over. And you don't want that happening when like he's running around or chasing something in the level. And then over here is the actual script for the character. So for the script, it's written in it's like C sharp. It's like C++ based. If you know C++, it's really easy to transition over. So with the script, that's where you actually go into the coding where you're controlling all the animations and the movements for the character. I'm not gonna go into this because the coding, it would be like a whole workshop on its own. But I will show you really quick before I end my part the animation sequence and how I did that. So for animations, when you're working with Unity, you click on the animations tab on the top. So that's where you would create your animations. And to do that, you would have to have, like I mentioned, the sprites that you created. I drew all of these individually on my iPad on Procreate on art software. And I imported it to Unity once I finished drawing. So what you would do to create animations is just select the images, the sprites that you want. And then you would just drag them here and it would create the animation. And once the animation is created, you would go to the animator tab, and here is where you would see the animations you created. So you could see for idle, I had that animation, and then for Scotty run, I selected the appropriate drawings for that and created that animation in the animation tab. So once I have this, you have to just kind of tell it like what the transitions are. So to do that, it's pretty simple. So you can kind of see, I'll explain it really quick and then I'll show you. So you have to work with parameters or layers. I only know how to work with the parameters. That's what I use for this. I know you could do layers, but I haven't played around with that. For parameters, you first have to create the parameter. So I did by clicking on here, and then it lets you use a float, integer, boolean, or trigger. I just use integer because I'm going to use numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 for the states, and then I just named it state. So once I created that parameter, I was able to go over here, and as you can see the transition, I'm clicking on this one that shows the arrow from idle to Scotty run. So for this one, I just added the condition over here. So I just did this one again, but I'll delete that one. So that's how you create the condition. So since I only have one parameter state, it lists it here. If I had other parameters, I could click on this and there would be like a list of the ones that I would want to choose for this particular animation sequence. But once I have state selected, you could tell it what you want it to do. So I'm saying when the state is equal to 1, I want it to go to the animation Scotty run. And then vice versa, when I want to go back to this, I do pretty much the same. So when I click on this transition from here to the idle animation, I added the state parameter again equals, and then this time it's 0 because this is assigned 0 and this is assigned 1 by default by Unity. Yeah, once I did that, a few things I did too was under the settings, I just made sure that has exit time is unchecked, and then make sure transition and offset is 0. That way your animation transition is smooth. If not, you'll kind of see a little hiccup. And also for this one, I made sure those were at 0. And to create those transitions, it's easy. So you just click on the one you want to start with, right click, make transition, and then you can kind of see you can attach it to whatever box you want it to. So if I had other animations, I can transition to those instead of like the Scotty run. And then when you hit play, you can kind of see what's going on too. Let me see. So it's not showing. Let's see. Might I hit something? Game. Oh, I wonder why it's not showing. But yeah, usually it shows like a blue line of what's going on with the transitions. But yeah, that's pretty much how you would do the animation sequences. I'll go back to the scene. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention too, over here on the hierarchy is where you can kind of see all the different like objects that you have. So you see if I click on this box, it shows me which tile it is. So it's just if you want to like rearrange them or delete something, you could just go over here and do that as well. Yeah, so yeah, I guess that's it. That's the stuff I wanted to show you with the 2D. I don't know if Ray, you wanna, let me see, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So I'll kind of show. Well, actually, I'll build a game as quick as I can while also showing, just kind of showing you the process. But this is using 3D. So for example, if let me see. Oops. So to create a game, once you download Unity and install it, you'll have this Unity hub where you could see all your projects. You could create new ones or add like a folder to a project. So if I click on new, I'm able to name the project, choose the location, and then excuse me, and then also I could choose like what type of kind of I guess template that I want for the project. So in this case, I would create a 3D, but I already created one, and this is what it looks like once you open it. So the 3D is pretty similar to the 2D, making a 2D game. Obviously, you have it's in it's 3-dimensional instead of 2D. But I mean, everything else is pretty much the same. So what I'll do right now is right here, I'll actually create I'll add an object, a 3D object. So I'll add a cube. So you could see this cube right here. And what I'll do is I'll just kind of scale it. So actually, I'll just put in the numbers. So I'll make it pretty big. So this will be, oops, wrong one. This will be like my floor for my scene, right? So I just have this large rectangle now. and that's my floor. And then I'll just move it down. Oops. -1. So, okay, so now I have like my floor. And I'll actually, let's see. So what I'll also do right now is under assets, you could right click and then you could add different things. What I'm going to do here is add a material. So what a material does is you could choose the color, kind of like how it's pretty much the color of the object and how it reacts to light. So I can make it more metallic, I can make it more shiny, I can make it more like kind of like a matte, kind of it's like it doesn't really reflect light. So you have all of that, all those controls here, but I'm just gonna make it simple and just change the color. So I'm just gonna make it like a, I don't know, like kind of like a brownish, like light brown color. And then once I do that, I could actually just drag in the material. And then if I hover it over a 3D object, it'll actually add the material onto there. So you can kind of see that. Just so you can see it better. Okay, so now what I could do is I'll actually add an object, which is pretty much my player. So I'll go to 3D object, and I'm just going to use a sphere. All right, so I added the sphere. And what I'll do now is I'll create a new material. And I'm going to create a new material. And then this time let's see, I'll make it blue. All right, and then same thing. I could just drag it over my object, or I could actually just click on my object and then drag it over. And so now that I set my material, I'll also add what's called a rigid body component. So this just gives it physics. So for example, as you'll see here, once I hit play, now it'll kind of just fall and then it'll collide with the ground, right? So I'll actually move this down a little bit more, right? And then I'll actually start building my scene a little bit. So what I could do is actually have, let's see. I have a 3D file. So I'm going to import this 3D file that I found online. It's just like some low poly mountains. And what I could do is I'll grab the object and I could just drag and drop it, right? So I'll go ahead and delete this. Oh, oops. Let me unpack this, delete that. And then I'll actually drag the material to kind of make it the same color. Right, so what I could do now is I could also add a collider. So this is similar to what Alvaro showed you. So pretty much it's like a 3D version. So you could actually add a box if you want, and then you could, edit kind of the dimensions of the collider. But what I'll actually do is a cool component of the 3D games is that you could actually add a mesh collider. So what this does is it actually uses the 3D object itself, right? And the outside of the 3D object. So like, the object, another object will react with a mesh that way instead of, or manually setting a box or like a sphere as your collider. So whatever the object is, that's the shape of the collider. So now what I'll do is I'll just copy and now that I set my collider, I could just kind of copy and paste. Oops, copy, paste, right? And then I'll just make it, different sizes. bring it down a little bit. Maybe rotate this one to make it a little different. And then I'll probably add one more. All right, so here I have kind of my basic scene. And so now what I could do is I want to add a script so I could actually move the ball. So I'll make this pretty simple. So to add a script, well, if you click on the object and then you go into the inspector, you could add different components. But if you want to just add a new script and code it yourself, or have it do things yourself with the script, you could either click on new script, or you could actually just type in what you want to call the script. So I'm just going to call this player movement, and then I'm going to hit enter and then create an ad. And so now what I'll do is I'm going to double click this right here to open the script, and it'll open Visual Studios. I'll go ahead and do this. Okay, so this is kind of like the default template. So I'll just go. I'm not going to go too deep into how to code this, but I'll just kind of like show you and kind of explain what I'm doing. So under here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my rigid body object. So to do that, I'm going to put, say, public rigid body, and then I'm going to name it RB for short, so it's just easy to type. So what public allows me to do is if I have public in front of it, it'll allow this object to be accessible to the public. So like Unity will be able to access and manipulate this object, or you could assign an object to that. And then same thing, I'm going to say public float. So float is just a number. And I'll just say forward force equals 1,000 F. So F is just kind of like a suffix to indicate that it's a float, public float. So the cool thing with making your variables public is that you'll actually be able to access them and manipulate them within Unity itself. And I'll show you that in a second. So I don't have to add anything to void start, but in void update, I'm just going to add some conditional statements. So I'm going to say input dot get key. So what this does is it's kind of getting what's being pressed on your keyboard, and I'm going to say W. And then this is what I want it to do. So here, if I'm pressing W, I want it to add force going forward. And this is just X, Y, and Z value, or it's just like how much force you're adding in the X, Y, and Z direction. And in this case, I'm going to say forward force times time dot delta time. And you don't have to worry about time dot delta time, but pretty much it allows it to run the same way on different computers. And then same thing, I'll say else if, and then if it's S, then I want it to be going backwards, so I'll put negative forward force. And then lastly, or last two things, I'll put input. Actually, I'll just do this, copy and paste this. Input get key, and then if it's D, then I want it to, I'll just copy and paste for my notes to save time. But I want it to go to the right. And then same thing here. What else? If it's A, then I want it to go to the left, which is negative. All right. So pretty much this is the script that I'm writing just to do basic controls of my object. So once I save this, if there's no errors, then I'll be able to move it. So as you can see here, so now as I saved it, all the public, oh, everything that I made public. So that's the object and these two variables right here. I could actually, I could actually drag my my sphere object. Actually, I'm going to rename this player, and I'll rename this ground. All right, so now I could actually drag this my player object, which is the sphere, and I'll drag and drop it to RB. So pretty much what it's doing is every time I'm referencing RB, I'm referencing my sphere, right? So then, in this case, it's adding force to the sphere and so forth in the code. Also here with the forward force, you could actually change these values as well. This will just affect like how fast, what's like the acceleration going forward and also to the side. So now if I press play, so you could see that, and now, why isn't it working? Let me try that again. I don't know why it's not working. But anyways, it's supposed to, it should be moving as I'm pressing the keys. Let me just copy and paste this just to make sure that I'm not missing anything. Oh. Oh, there. Okay, so now you can see that I'm able to move the sphere, right? And it's just using this code, right? Just saying, looking at the inputs and then telling it to move a certain direction. Ooh, where'd it go? Okay, so one thing you'll notice is, so this is actually our scene. So this isn't actually what the game will see. So in order to get the camera to follow the object, what I'll do is I'll add this plugin, or it's a package that's it's free to use. You just have to install it. So if you just go to Window and then Package Manager and then type in Cinemachine, it's a cool little add-on that allows you to simply set up a camera to follow your object. And I'll show you how to do that real quick. Once this installs. Okay, so now if I go back to my scene and I'll stop the game from playing, what I'll do here is I'll right click and I'll say, oh, actually, sorry. I'll go to Cinemachine and then I'll click on Create Virtual Camera. And so what this will do is it'll actually add a component to your current main camera, and then it'll actually also add this virtual camera. And what you can do here is where it says follow and look at, you could choose what objects that it will follow, the camera will follow and look at. So I'll go ahead and make it follow my player object, which is the sphere. So I'm just going to drag and drop it here and then also look at it. And then you could adjust it here. Oops. How come? Let's see. Okay, and let's see. So it should be able to view it right now. Here, let me try this again. Trying to see why I can't see it. Let me see. Okay, I'll actually, I don't know why it's not working. I'll go ahead and open an existing project. 1 second. Okay, so here's pretty much the project that similar to what I was working on. I actually moved the game right here, so it looks better. Or you have a better view. Okay, so the way that it should work is once I click on the camera, right, and I drag the player object to follow and look at. So it should just look at the object that you have and follow and look at, and then you could also adjust, the angle that it'll be looking at it at. Also, like how close it should be and stuff like that, or also like kind of like a little bit of like the offset. So you could kind of adjust it to how you want it. And then under main camera, right, where it says default blend. So what it'll do is like it'll kind of like follow it, and then right here where it says S, you could choose say how long it'll take for it to kind of catch up with the object. So right now I just have it set to 1. So now what this will look like is, and for this one I have a little bit, it's the movement of this is a little bit more complex. So you kind of see it rotating and stuff like that. But let me see. So once I hit play, right? So you can see that I have the ball, right? And now I can move around, right? And now it's following the object. And you can see that because I have the mesh collider, and you'll notice that it's shaking too. And that's just because and that's the camera. It's like, I think it's, the movements are so, I guess, the movements of the camera or the ball and the camera trying to catch up with it is causing it to shake. I haven't really found a fix. Yeah, I know there's like a setting that you have to toggle that fixes this, or it's something in the code, but it's pretty much just it deals with the camera. So I'm able to move around and and it'll actually interact and collide with these different objects because they have the mesh collider. Right? Another thing that I added to this is I added a little bit of physics to it. So if you just go to your assets, create, and then you go to physics material. In this case, I use this one. If you're making a 2D game, you could use the 2D. Pretty much what it does is it just creates this material, and then you could choose the bounciness, the friction, and stuff like that. I already created it, and pretty much you just have to add it to, so if I'm going to click on player, so where the collider is, you just kind of drag and drop it to the material. And so that allows me to make it bounce. So I could actually make it bounce even more. So if I do 5, I think 1 might be the the most. Let's say I want to bounce less than, I could adjust that, and it'll actually bounce less. Let me see. Oh, last thing is you could actually, so you could, with all the collisions, you could actually, when your object or your player is colliding with other objects, you can make it react or trigger something or an action if it collides with that object. So, for example, if you're talking about like a Sonic the Hedgehog game, when Sonic hits the rings, the ring disappears and then you get a point. So pretty much it's using collision. So once those two objects meet or they collide, you could write in your code to kind of tell it what to do. So in this case, I kind of did that. So if I go to player, and then I just created a player collision script. Again, it's just a custom script. This one's pretty simple. And so what this does is I wrote this function. So it's on collision enter. It's actually predefined in Unity. And then what it's doing is if the object that I have the script on, if it collides with something, it's going to get the collider name. So you could get different info about the object that it's colliding with. In this case, I'm getting the name, and I said if it's named bounds, right, which is this object over here. So I kind of set like an invisible object to kind of like show that, okay, like the object went out of bounds. So it's going to run this function that I created in this script. And oops, wrong one. Let me actually open it. And the player movement script. So pretty much it's just like I created my own function. So once it runs this, it'll set the velocity to 0 for the object. In this case, that's our player sphere. And then it'll actually move the object to starting coordinates, which is 0, 9, and -5. So to show you what that looks like, and then you can kind of see it here too. So I have it set so that it shows in the console when it collides with an object and then what the name of the object is. So then if I just kind of like roll off screen, right? So it collided with bounds, right? That bounds object. So then because it did that, then it kind of respawned and changed its position to the starting position. So there's a lot of things that you could do. I mean, a lot of it, deals with coding and stuff like that, but there's a lot of resources online. If you're interested in kind of getting more complex, I guess, game, game mechanics and stuff like that. So yeah, so that's it for the 3D, I guess my 3D part on, or my part on, making a 3D game. And I guess there's a lot of also use cases for this, at least from the 3D side. So you could actually make like a virtual tour and stuff like that. So you could, for example, we pretty much made like a 3D environment of a 3D, I guess, yeah, 3D environment of like the Creat'R Lab. And I think that might be one of our next fun projects that we could do, is like make a little game, kind of like, so you could kind of walk around the Creat'R Lab, and you can make it so that you could interact with certain objects and stuff like that. But yeah, are there any questions about Unity, or maybe if you have like anything that maybe you've used Unity before, or like a similar game engine? If you want to share what you've made, that would be great too.
Oh yeah. Well, I guess if there's no questions, or if no one wants have anything to share, yeah, I guess this is it for the workshop. Thank you for coming. Please keep an eye out for like summer workshops that we're gonna have. They'll be going out soon with the dates and the titles for those. And we also do have a workshop for the library next week on Wednesday the 2nd at 12. It's a peek inside the library. We're gonna have some guest speakers from Access Services talk about the library drop-off service that's available right now for the summer and for the fall if you wanted to check out any items from the library. So we look forward to seeing you again in future workshops. And yeah, thank you, everyone. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, Ray, or email us at the Creat'R Lab, and we can help you with any of your questions to get started with Unity or any other project that you have. So yeah, thank you, everyone.